There's a sign on the highway. There's a fork in the road. A lifetime of lessons learned don't mean nothing, it shows. Armchair doctor, experts making all the rules, selling us their theories while they take us all for fools. And there's nowhere left to hide on that freedom road. Don't tell me what to think, don't tell me how to live on that freedom road. Get your hand out of my pocket, I got no more to give, I got no more to give. There's a cop in the distance behind a big box tree. There's a crime being committed somewhere, but the radar gun's on me. A quiet quarter afternoon, I'm doing 105. Like a fat kid on a seesaw, all tilted to one side. And there's nowhere left to hide, and no one's putting up a fight on that freedom road. Don't tell me what to think, don't tell me how to live on that freedom road. Get your hand out of my pocket, I got no more to give, I got no more to give. Clipboard, he's just out of school. He tells me that I'm doing wrong, something he could never do. The writing in a textbook ain't no substitute for life. The rules and regulations, they're just dumbing down our minds. And there's nowhere left to hide, and no one's putting up a fight. They're all just waiting round to die on that freedom road. Don't tell me what to think, don't tell me how to live on that freedom road. Get your hand out of my pocket, I got no more to give on that freedom road. Don't tell me what to think, don't tell me how to live on that freedom road. Get your hand out of my pocket, I got no more to give, I got no more to give.
Okay, we're off your old lefty. Now you're a right-wing terrorist, but we are off. And who we got today?
Oh, we're very honoured to have Fred Pawle on. He's one of the great characters of Australian journalism. We used to work together on The Australian. So I'm losing my voice there's so much outrage around. It's really hard to know where to begin. The whole
Yeah, that's
country
right.
is just outraged at the moment by absolutely everything.
Yeah,
Get your hands out of
that's
my pocket
exactly
is
right.
about right. Yeah, very
Yeah.
disillusioned, very angry country right now, and they all. Albo's well up there as one of the most hated prime ministers in Australian history, that's for sure. Anyway, let's bring on Fred. He's a great character, and he's just reissued the biography of Bill Leake, who was the cartoonist for the
this is
Australian
Bill
for
Leake
many
here.
years, and truly one of the funniest men alive. Anyone who knew him just loved
Bring
Bill.
him on, and here he is. He's all black.
Fred, what happened to you? Good Lord.
Is he there?
No.
You there,
I don't
Fred?
know. What are you doing, mate?
I might kick him out and see if he comes back in. Give him a text, see if he comes back in. I'll get the book up while you're doing it.
Yeah, no,
It's Sunday mornings. Everyone's just waking up.
Yeah, he was really. I'll talk a little bit about Bill Leake while we're going. And Fred's got his own Substack, which is great anti-woke Substack, and laments every day the passing of Australia and the into what it's now becoming, whatever that is. It's just.
So that's the die laughing there. That's Fred Pawle.
No, that's Bill Leake.
That's Bill Leake. Sorry. Oh, here he is. I'm here.
Is he back?
Yeah.
I got Bill. What a friend.
I don't know what happened. I didn't press any buttons. I don't know what happened, but anyway.
Welcome to ASIO.
Yeah, I blame
Just blame
ASIO. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm really honoured to join you, both you blokes. Admire both of you. John, have very fond memories of our time together at the Australian, and Michael watched everything you did during COVID and admired it enormously. People
Thanks,
like
mate.
you give me faith in Australia.
Oh, cheers. Well, it's a nice way to wake up on a Sunday morning. What's it like working with John when he was a journo?
Mate, he shuffles around the office like Columbo from that 1970s TV detective.
I love that joke.
Yeah, and he's kind of shambolic and mumbles a lot. But like Columbo, he always gets the job done. I think one of the funniest things was he was appointed the editor of, I've forgotten what the title was, John, but you were the editor of sort of keeping an eye on what's happening at nighttime in Sydney.
Oh yeah, out and about.
We're going to wind up, the pages of the Australian will be filled with stories about what happened in King's Cross at 4 a.m. on a Friday night.
Oh God, that was a classic bit of News Limited management. They didn't even how much of the staff that they were dumping me into the art section, late in life.
Do you despair, Fred, of what's happened to journalism in this country?
Yeah, enormously. I entered the profession with a certain amount of idealism and hope to, produce good work and be honest about what I did. And to be fair, I spent many years as a very adamant defender of Rupert Murdoch and News Corp, because I had spent quite a productive career there for many years. But when COVID came, I just the company was exposed for being, let's say, manipulative with what was, one of the biggest stories of our lifetime. The COVID virus and the vaccine still is one of the biggest stories of our lifetime. And News Corp, with a few honourable exceptions, pretty much just towed the line. And that's when I parted company with it. I mean, I still, occasionally get commissioned to write a story for News Corp, and I don't turn down work, but I wouldn't work there full time again, because I've just seen how cavalier they are with the truth when it becomes a corporate necessity. It occurred to me, I think I saw it quite succinctly at that point, was companies like News Corp can appear to have their readers' interests at heart, and they do, but only when those interests coincide with the corporations. when the corporation's interests don't coincide with the reader's interests, the corporation prevails.
Wow.
Yeah,
Do you
look
think
at
it's
the Iran war now.
do you think the state of the country we're in now is proof of how important good journalism is? Like, if the journalists had actually been allowed to do their job, do you think we'd actually be here?
Yeah, I think it's a twofold thing, Michael, because you have to also take into account how gullible the public are, and I don't want to sound elitist or condescending when I say that, but increasingly, Australians are increasingly the product of our education system, and our education system is despicably engineered to produce people who just go along with the woke agenda. I hate to plug someone else's book so early in this podcast, but my wife has just written a devastating book. She spent a year investigating this. It's called Mindless, and it will blow you away just how thoroughly Marxists have taken over the education system. So as a result, the media is kind of, the media, even if it were responsible and sensible and bold and brave, it would still be up against a very formidable brainwashing of its readership. So, I kind of do feel for people who run media companies and edit newspapers these days, because just publishing robustly the truth is probably not going to sell a lot of papers these days, because the readers have just been brainwashed. But that's where people like you come in, Michael and John, and myself. Like, I'm just fully independent now, and I'm not making much money at all. It's probably costing me money, really. But the independent media is just keeping the flame of truth alive, and that's what's going to keep Australia free.
Yeah. Mishivka, you got the blue bead? We've been talking about this. I'll talk about this later. Go on, John.
What would Bill Leak, you're just reissuing Die Laughing, the biography of Bill Leak, what would he have made of this era? I mean, what would he have made of the budget, for instance, which has got right across the spectrum? It's got everybody frothing at the mouth, every independent, Scott Kura, who runs a great podcast, and James Glisson, who's also fantastic. These guys are running YouTube channels now, which are far more effective than the mainstream media, and got tens of thousands of followers, each of them, and which would do any Sky journalist, make them envious to hell, So
yeah,
well,
if you wanted to know what Bill, how Bill would respond to current circumstances and stories, I think all you have to do is look at Johannes's cartoons, because he is definitely a chip off the old block. Yeah. His response to the budget has been magnificent. Like he referred to our esteemed treasurer as releasing a book called the Chalmers Sutra, because it was the title of it was the joy of tax. Johannes's cartoons are all just multi-layered, hilarious little compositions that, just like Bill, attack things from a variety of angles. And every time you can look at one of his cartoons just as you could have with Bill's, and 4 or 5 times, and seen a new joke every time, because they're so comprehensively devastating to the people he was attacking. There's a passage in the book that kind of flew under the radar the first time around, and when I included it, I thought, people are going to respond to this. Really, they're going to go, oh, yeah, this really blows the lid off the woke agenda. But no one seemed to notice it, and so in the second edition, I've made a more emphatic point about it. And that it's a quote from Lee Sales from the ABC. And she essentially says, I'm paraphrasing, but paraphrasing quite accurately. And that is, it doesn't matter what you intend to say in a piece or in a cartoon or whatever. If someone is offended by it, then you are being offensive. And like I said, when I put that quote into the book, I was thinking, wow, I can't believe anyone admitted to saying that, and admitting to thinking that, because that just means that everyone has to self-censor. Self-censor. And the thing about Bill is, Bill was, and so is Johannes. This comes back to your question, John. Bill was, it was like just so excited about offending people. Like when he saw someone do something wrong, he couldn't hold himself back from offending them. And so he was deliberately offensive. But for someone to say you can be unintentionally offensive, Bill would have just gone, oh, don't be ridiculous. How can you unintentionally offend someone? It's not possible. If they take offense at something that they imagine you've said, then that's their problem, not yours. So yeah, that's where we're at now. We are now. That's why Bill was hauled over the coals. It contributed to his death, and that's where we're at now with in Australia. You know, you have to censor yourself in case someone imagines you've been offensive.
Yes, maybe we could go back. Sorry, through that history of why he was dragged over the coals by the Human Rights Commission in his final couple of years, which was incredible. I mean, there's a good story in the BBC about it all and so on and so forth, but it got worldwide attention, this story. So maybe we could go through it. It was a police officer basically handing out, you can find this image online really easily, that a police officer was handing his kid back to him and saying to an Aboriginal man holding a beer can and looking pretty scruffy, going, you need to talk, you need to teach your son about personal responsibility. And the guy just goes, righto, what's his name? And it just caused massive offence everywhere.
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
like I said,
looking at them now. Is another one, selfie, Department of Foreign Affairs tour.
Yeah, that was what was her name?
What was her name? Yeah. You got paid all this money by foreign
back in the day
around the world.
Yeah,
working Australia.
Yeah.
And then got really critical about Australia afterwards.
That self-censorship is taken. I'm in WA, and what they're doing now, because there's a lot of farmers out here, they're taking guns away willy-nilly. So if you had a gun simply by being on the show, they'll come around in force and take all your guns away, regardless if you're legal, regardless. It's just gone. And
really,
there's one man came and talked to me yesterday. He said he was on his farm, and suddenly 6 cops rolled up, the whole gear, just like a SWAT team, to take his guns away. And all he'd done, he claimed, was he'd liked a Rod Cullerton post. That's it.
Really?
Wow.
Very rarely on set. And so what they're doing now, and I think the purpose behind this is what they do now is every other gun owner self censors. So they're going to make things get quieter and quieter as people are just too scared to talk. And this is how communism rises. I thought communism was rise by the point of a gun, but it's done by compliance and silence and looking after your own pile of dirt until all anyone's left with is dirt. You know?
Think of all those guys who died in Vietnam trying to stop communism coming to Australia. That was the idea. You know, communism's coming, it's spreading south, and now it's here, introduced by stealth by our own supposedly elected leaders. Michael, how are those cops, under what laws are those cops taking those guns? Is that...
They've changed the laws over in WA. They've done it recently. I don't know how legal it is. They've done it recently, and it's happening everywhere over here. And and you think on a farm too, farmers need guns. What you going to do? You got a big cow that's broken its leg. You're going to just you know, send it to Canada so it go through the MAIDS program. I mean, what you going to do? You know,
the taking guns away it reveals the attitude of the government towards the citizenry, and it's the same with censorship. you know, the two are closely related. If you don't trust the citizenry, then you will tell them you can only say things that we approve of, and you can't own guns. It's a dead set giveaway that they don't think we are smart enough to think for ourselves and defend our own possessions responsibly. They think if we own guns, then there'll be gunfights on the streets. There won't. The best, safest places in America, where there are guns everywhere, are places where guns are legally owned and, you know, openly carried. I remember reading once that if you don't want to die in a gunfight, if you don't want to be shot in America, there are two rules that you should probably abide by. One is don't stand on a street corner selling drugs, and don't join a gang. You don't want to get shot? It's as easy as that. And it would be the same in Australia if the government trusted us to own our own weapons, but they don't. And we all know, I think the three of us agree, the reason for that is that they are worried that one day we'll rise up against them.
Yeah, that's the truth. I mean, once they leave no peaceful options to have us kick them out, and and Australia wants them gone. Australia, everywhere you're seeing that. That's why the biggest thing this week is Husey coming out attacking the government. Savagely, and he does it brilliantly. He does it like Hughes. It's great, and that's like wow, that's bigger than Carl. You know, this is
it is.
You know, this is the boy from the back of the bus coming down and going, "This is all bullshit. Where's this bus going?" You know, and he's not going to go back. He's not going to change. He's had enough.
Good on him.
You know, he's even talking about why should we pay tax. I mean, you know, he's gone straight to the jugular. You know,
wow.
Because all the money just goes to cartels. He goes, why are we supporting it? Yeah, and there's another. We have another woman works with us. She's quite a wealthy farmer. She's written about land tax and other things to the Victorian government, saying, "Can you prove to me that this money won't go to nefarious accounts? If you prove that, I'm willing to pay it. But can you please prove to me that this money will be spent where it's meant to be spent?" And I thought, what if everyone did that? We just want evidence.
Yeah. A friend of mine moved to Singapore recently, and his wife started a little business on the side and registered it in Singapore. And at the end of the financial year, the Singapore government wrote to her and said, "You've earned this much money, and you owe us this much tax." And the Singapore tax rate is 17%. She hadn't earned much money. She happily sent them a check or transferred the money into the Singaporean equivalent of the ATO. And guess what? She got a letter back thanking her for the money.
You're kidding me. That's hysterical.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
I mean, if they thank you for it, you can guarantee they're going to spend it wisely. But if they treat you like some sort of cash cow, and and keep upping the tax rates and pretending that they're not, then they're only doing that because they're going to spend it badly, mostly these days on the NDIS.
That's what's got Husey fired up. He says the NDIS is just a scam. Everyone can see it. But I think the other big thing that Australians are really waking up to is that we're sitting on all this mineral wealth. How can we have high fuel prices when there's the great southern ocean of oil beneath our feet? Why can't we have natural gas when you throw a cigarette lighter, you throw a cigarette butt down the wrong rabbit hole, you can end up on the moon? I mean, we're giving the gold away. Some farmer, and this is the people are getting it themselves. 3/4 of our gold just goes offshore. 476 tons we dug up last year, and I think 3/4 of it went away. Nothing for us, nothing at all.
Wow.
And so we know that we should be loaded. We shouldn't have any debt. We should be sailing. And
this comes back to how stupid the people are. And again, I don't mean to sound condescending, but they are products of our despicable education system. A few years ago, Equinor, the Norwegian state-owned, well, mostly state-owned, 51% state-owned energy resource giant, took over the exploration license for a place I think it's 300 kilometers off the 300 k's off the Great Australian Bight. And apparently there's a lot of oil down there, a lot of oil and gas down there. And Equinor was particularly well qualified to explore because they've made the North Sea. The North Sea has some of the biggest recorded waves in history. And the Norwegians have successfully extracted a lot of oil and gas from that field without losing any rigs or personnel. So the Great Australian Bight is pretty rough conditions, and the Norwegians came down and said, "Yeah, I reckon we can drill this and find a lot of oil." They spent a lot of money, and right from the start, they made the mistake of revealing, of being very open about their plans, all their contingencies and so on. And they released a contingency, a map they released the details of what would happen if there was a spill from this one rig, right? And they produced 100 different scenarios, contingent on different weather conditions and where the oil would possibly wash up if there was a spill in the 3 or 4 days it would take before you could cap the hole. Anyway, so Greenpeace got their hands on this information, and instead of just saying, here's 100 different scenarios, and in each of them, maybe a couple of dolphins and a seagull will, be uncomfortably covered in oil for a few days, they produced this map that showed oil washing up from Bunbury through to Port Macquarie. And it scared the hell out of both the coalition and the Labor opposition at the time. Anyway, cut a long story short, the Greenies won, and Equinor packed up and said, well, this isn't worth the trouble because Australians hate us. And Australians did. There was this really, really vitriolic campaign against Equinor. And they just packed up and left. It cost them tens of millions of dollars just to get that far, and they left. But had they been allowed to continue, this was probably 4 or 5 years ago now, had they been allowed to continue, we'd be getting that oil now. That oil would be flowing ashore at the Great Australian Bight. And, if we'd had the foresight to build a refinery, we would not be affected by the war in Iran. So, and I followed the protest movement closely because I'm a surfer, and the South Australian surfers along the South Australian and Victorian coastlines led that protest, and I was just appalled. I was embarrassed to be a surfer because surfboards are made from oil byproducts. Wetsuits are made from oil byproducts. All these surfers are running around saying, "Stay out of the Great Australian Bight," and they're riding exactly the products that they're protesting against. It was embarrassing. So I followed it closely, and the level of delusion and passion among those people, although it was pretty typical of grassroots environmentalism, and fighting against that it's formidable. It's really difficult. Equinor couldn't do it. We're in a tough position. We should be, as you say, tapping our resources, but everyone who tries just comes up against this brick wall.
I've interviewed some of the leaders of that. When I came across, they're still bragging about that there, and I met some, and they were telling how they took the oil company down. So it'd be interesting to do like a follow-up to go, okay, well, was that the right thing to do? Yeah, we stopped it, and these people see it as a great success that the surfies stopped this multinational company, but is it the right thing to do? Has Australia benefited from this, or have we lost? Because there's a huge fertilizer plant was supposed to be built in Victoria, and because of I'm not sure why, but I think the Labor government said no, and now it's gone to New Zealand. 1,500 jobs, enough fertilizer for the country, and we've sent it offshore. I
Yeah.
mean,
wow. Well, yeah, I don't think the surfers along that coast now would have much of an argument, because clearly we do need the oil, and we probably need to refine it here as well. Um,
we need independence.
but yeah, we need
which we had.
independence. Yeah.
You look at
Yeah.
the 1970s, yeah, and you look at pictures of the 1970s, all the cars we made ourselves, all
Yeah.
the buildings we built ourselves, the washing machines, the materials used in the buildings, we made the bricks, we made the metal, we did everything. And
Yeah.
so
And
it's really a
and
point of
now we've
actually
got,
going down, going, now we're here. We can make
well,
coffee.
I mean, if you in 1963, I'm just plucking these figures from memory. In 1963, the year that Anthony Albanese was born, the GDP per head of population in Singapore was a quarter of Australia's, and now Singapore GDP per head is something like 20-30% higher than Australia's. And Singapore had nothing in 1963. It was just a ghetto. Like it, you know, they were they got no resources. They had very little land. All they had was their own intellect and own ingenuity and determination. And Lee Kuan Yew turned it into a thriving nation. And now Anthony Albanese, 63 years later, is going to Singapore. It has a quarter of our population, like no resources. Virtually, you know, a quarter of our population had nothing, built itself up into a more prosperous and thriving and arguably free country than Australia. And the Australian Prime Minister, without even any sort of sense of shame, goes cap in hand to Singapore begging for oil or for petrol. It's unbelievable. And that all happened in our lifetime.
Yeah, I know. Incredible. Can we just get back to Bill Leak for a sec? I've got a cartoon put up here. I don't mean to be offensive, but well, I do mean to be offensive, because this is just
so did Bill. Yeah.
This is just so good. Let's bring it up here. I mean, look at that. I'll just see if I can. 2 seconds. It is, considering what's happening now, that is just so clever.
Yeah, yeah.
Where are you guys? Yeah,
and the people who were offended by that are now the people defending the result in the Tickle versus Giggle case, that men can invade women's spaces with impunity. And as we saw in the Olympics, men can beat the shit out of women in a boxing ring with impunity.
Yeah.
He managed to offend everyone. Remember the what was it, where they're all stomping down Oxford Street, all dressed basically as Nazis, the whole game.
Yes,
that just pissed off everybody. Couldn't deviate from the view. You know, if you dared to. Yeah. You know, if you
and again, that preceded that famous photograph of I think it's Regent Street.
I've got it. Hold on, I've got it. Yeah, keep talking. I'll grab it up.
There was that famous photo of Regent Street in London during Pride Month or Pride Week or Pride Year or whatever it is. That was festooned with the rainbow flag, and that was that. Bill predicted that. Bill foresaw that. Bill foresaw everything. And that's what I say on the back cover. Like, you know, Bill was widely ridiculed by the intelligentsia for the warnings he was making about environmentalism, identity politics, Islam, and censorship. He was saying all these things are going to destroy this wonderful culture that we have. Yeah. And people ridiculed him for it. And as I say on the back cover of the book, all those things have come true. So if Bill was still alive, he'd be asking, well, who's laughing now?
Yeah, who's laughing now? Yeah, God, that so upset people. It wasn't even funny. People were just outraged.
It's so good. Oh, my God.
Yeah. He was an amazing artist. I mean, he was an amazing drawer. If you went to his house and watched him cook up these cartoons, it was amazing. He was an amazing.
Well, he was brilliant to watch. You would have seen him a few times, John. He was watching him in action. His method was actually quite remarkable because most artists approach a composition with starting with the outline. So you get, you'll see them sketch the outline of whatever they're painting or drawing in pencil, and then fill the color in within those borders, and then and work from there. Bill's process, as you probably saw, John, was actually the opposite. What he would do was he would draw various exaggerated versions of what he wanted to do, and just do the color. And because he was a caricaturist, he would just push the border as far as he could using the color, the colored shapes, right? And then he would, at the last stage, would be the black lines as the outlines. So it was an interesting process, but it enabled him to be an incredible caricaturist. Okay, so this is the cartoon. This is what Bill is best known about. And this is where we get to the point where whether Bill was being intentionally offensive or not. Now, the controversy about this cartoon, which became internationally famous on Twitter at the time, as it was known, under the hashtag Indigenous Dads. People were posting photos to this hashtag on Twitter called Indigenous Dads, and it was photos of Aboriginal blokes with their kids, right? And everyone was going, yeah, hey, I'm an Aboriginal dad and I know my son's name and he loves me and we're a normal family. Bill wasn't criticizing those people. Bill was criticizing the deadbeat dads in the territory, in the so-called Aboriginal communities, who were alcoholics and who were neglecting their children. And by proof of that is the fact that the copper is a responsible Indigenous bloke. Now, everyone leapt to Bill's defense by saying, excuse me, it's not just about the deadbeat dad, which is true. They do exist and they are violent and some of them rape children. It's also about the responsible bloke who wants a better world for Indigenous people. But even those people, I'd argue, overlooked the subject of the cartoon. It's the child. Yeah. It's the child that Bill was most concerned about. And everything he said in defense of this cartoon was about the conditions in which Aboriginal children were being brought up. And to misinterpret that is to deliberately find offense where no offense is intended.
He was dragged mercilessly through the Human Rights Commission for 2 years, causing enormous stress, and that stress was blamed for his early death.
John, you could vouch for this. I mean, I struggle not to get upset about this. Bill was the least bigoted person I've ever met. I can't say it more emphatically, and I'm not exaggerating it. He was the most egalitarian person I've ever met. You could drink with him in a bar, and a bar could be full of sort of eccentrics and extroverts, and he'd be chatting with the barman. Like, you couldn't sit down at a restaurant without him starting up a conversation with the people at the next table. He was the most egalitarian person I've ever met in a country full of egalitarianism. And can you imagine, John and Michael, what it would be like for that person to be considered right across Australia as a racist? I mean, it would have destroyed him. I know it did. I spoke to him about it. It ate away at him. It didn't make sense.
Remember the Chopper Read thing? He just told this hysterical story about how he drew some cartoons into Chopper Read. I forget the exact story, but then he became mates with Chopper Read and would go and get drunk with him. And then he tells this story about how Chopper Read came back and crashed at his house one day and then ripped him off the next morning and he couldn't find his wallet or whatever the story was. But Chopper,
they went. It's in the book. They went out drinking and they played the pokies and they hit jackpot, and Bill pocketed $600 and they crashed back at Bill's place. They were both shit faced, and Bill woke up. Chopper had gone, and he didn't realize it at that point that that Chopper had absconded with the money out of his wallet. Anyway, Bill met his mate, a few mates at a cafe that morning, and after they had their coffees, Bill had told him, "Oh, I went out with Chopper drinking last night. We won money on the pokies. We had a great night. He's a good bloke, Chopper Reed," and all this sort of stuff. Anyway, when they finished their coffees, Bill said, "Oh, look, I won up big last night. I'll pay for this." And he grabbed his wallet and looked in it, and there's nothing there. Yeah, it was the source of a particular amusement that morning. And Chopper sent him $10 a couple of years later via the ABC by way of apology.
He was so damn funny. He really was so damn funny, Bill. Just on that sort of, just on that exaggeration thing, I remember he used to have these running taglines that would go on for one cartoon after another, and he started drawing Johnny Howard with a little rat's tail, rat, and so one day he calls me in, and every cartoon he did on Johnny Howard, the tail would just get a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger until his bloody tail was taken up basically half the cartoon. He calls me in one day to his little place where he did all his work. It reeked of all these chemicals and things. You practically get stoned walking in there, and you walk in there and he's got this Howard with this tail that's going, "Do you think it's too much, John? Do you think I've gone too far?" Go. No, mate, go with it.
Well, here's a little insight. Into Bill's way of working and just how brilliant his caricaturing was. This anecdote isn't in the book because it was a little bit redundant. But I was visiting his apartment one day because we lived in the same apartment block, and I was visiting there with my son, who would have been about 2 years old at the time, and he came in just wearing a nappy, and anyway, we were just hanging around with Bill, and Bill just adored children, and so he was amusing young Freddie Jr. a lot. And anyway, at one stage, Freddie sat down on a big armchair in Bill's place, right? And you can picture it, a 2-year-old child in an adult chair. He looks tiny, and Bill looked at him and went, "Oh my God, look at that." And he went and got his camera and reeled off a bunch of photos, I still have them somewhere, of Freddie in this big armchair. And he can't reach the arms, like it's that big, right? So he looks really diminutive. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen the famous portrait that Bill did. Oh, actually, no, it wasn't a famous portrait. It was cartoons that Bill did depicting Mr. Howard as a diminutive prime minister, just not big enough to fill the boots. Now, he used that photo of Freddie Jr. in that armchair as reference to depict John Howard in a seat that was too big for him. So that's how Bill worked. Like, he was a true artist. He saw things that inspired him, and he used it to work with.
It's interesting, isn't it, that him like Bill and say Lunig, they're really like our canaries in the coal mine.
Yeah.
And we've snuffed them out. We didn't wait for them to be killed. We've just let them be snuffed out by whatever's trying to destroy our culture. And there's an attack on our culture. Even before, I remember I was working as a trammy. This was years and years ago. And a French company bought the trams. Now, upstairs, during the day, the tram drivers are like this. But once they're upstairs together in the staff room, they were beautiful. I used to love every time in the staff room because they were characters. They were so big and all embellishing their stories and stuff. They were all work, calling each other Wog and Skip and anything you can think of, and all loving each other. Meant nothing. These words were bonding. And then a French company came along and they said, if you post anything that anyone anywhere could find offensive, will basically sack you. And that's what started happening. All these characters got sacked after 30 years on the job, they're gone. And the Vietnamese drivers who'd come here off the boat, unable to speak English, and been made as conductors. So the conductors on Melbourne trams, right from a war, unable to speak English. It really happened. They pulled me aside and said, Michael, this is communism. This is years before COVID. They said, this is how it starts. They come in and they silence the larrikins, they silence the characters. And so when I left, you used to walk into the staff room and the people were whispering like this, and they'd look like this. Make sure anyone's listening, because they got a lot of lesbians and young people, and especially lesbians, and they told, and this is just true, and they told the lesbians, if any of these basically toxic men saying anything that you find offensive, tell us. And loads of these men were just marched off the premises as security guards. 30 years on the job, gone. You know?
Well, that began, Michael, officially and legislatively in 1995 with the introduction of Section 18C of the Racial Discrimination Act. And because that section had such a huge influence over Bill's life, I looked pretty deeply into it. And the Attorney General at the time, under the Keating government that introduced it, was a bloke called Michael Lavarch. And one of the key reasons for introducing Section 18C, which effectively enforces, it's the enforcement of multiculturalism. That's what it is. So multiculturalism is the new sort of doctrine. I'd call it almost a religion, to be honest. People believe in it so fervently. That had to be enforced legislatively, and dissent against it had to be criminalized, which they did in Section 18C. And Michael Lavarch described that section as educative. That's the word he used. He was using that section of legislation to educate people about the virtues of multiculturalism, because they obviously weren't smart enough to work out for themselves that it was good for them. And that's how this censorship has crept over the country ever since. Now, I mean, 18C, the days of fighting against 18C seem quaint these days, because we're up against all these hate speech laws. There's literally nothing you can say, or almost nothing you can say of any importance that couldn't in some way or other be interpreted as offending someone, and therefore in contravention of hate speech laws. But the point is Australia a better country as a result of that? Those guys losing their jobs as tram drivers who were enjoying their lives and having a lot of conviviality at work, they've lost their jobs. Australians aren't free to talk about things that they care about, and Australia is more divided as a result. So has 18C achieved its objective? I'd argue it hasn't.
Yeah. There's
what about the hate speech laws? Good Lord.
Yeah.
Actually, anything? I mean, how is it possible? You know, you had the Middle East media research mob in America put out that the Imam of Australia has declared a jihad against the Zionist entity, completely uncovered in Australia. Yet someone who stands up at a demo and talks for 45 seconds cops a year in jail. But is anyone putting the Imam in jail for declaring a jihad against the Zionist entity? I don't think so. It makes no sense. None of this is logical. None of it. It's absolutely curdling. Banning the Hizb. You saw the reception good old Albo got in the Lakemba Mosque. You know? Yeah. That was because they banned the Hizb, who were very closely aligned with some of the most senior figures, including the Imam, in the Muslim community in Australia. I mean, it's insane. It's completely insane.
I wrote a piece recently for my Substack page about how the left has has manipulated the meaning of the White Australia policy. The White Australia policy, the first time that term was coined was back in the late 19th century. And for most of the 60, 70 years afterwards, it was a cornerstone of the Labor Party until Gough Whitlam came along. But because white in those days was a sort of collective term for Western civilization, it was, they just used the words white. But if the genius who'd come up with that term had called it the civilized Australia policy, then the left would have had a lot more difficulty in manipulating that to appear as a racist idea. It's not a racist idea. There's nothing wrong with a country wanting to avoid ethnic tensions and being selective about the people who come and live in their society. There's nothing racist about that at all. You don't have to hate other races to wish that to not want them to live in your country. I don't hate people. I mean, I don't hate Muslims, for example, but I don't want them in Australia. I mean, there's plenty of Muslim countries for Muslims to live in, but why should they be allowed to come and enjoy the prosperity and freedom that we have here when clearly they don't assimilate and they don't like us much? So yeah, the White Australia policy, I think, it's one of the cleverest things the left has done in the past 50 years, is to taint the White Australia policy as something that is inherently racist. It's not. It's just patriotism in the form of wanting to be selective about who lives in your country. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
I mean, it's an open secret that you've got a lot of these mosques preaching the overthrow of the Australian government and the implementation of a caliphate or a theocracy, and that's an open secret. But we've just seen the Islamic State, the ISIS brides come back famously, referring to that very famous cartoon of Bill's, does my bomb look big in this? Which is another one that caused an absolute outrage. Do you remember that one? That's a great one if you can find it.
That was a beauty,
Yeah, does my bomb look big in this? I mean, it just, two women draped in black. And now we've had the ISIS brides come back, and they were no damn innocent. They weren't innocents. They were calling for their sisters to join them in jihad, and basically
exactly.
Come and sleep with a real man. Leave that pussy white, milk loaf, vanilla milk sort of husband in the suburbs. Come and sleep with a warrior. Come and sleep with a real man. That was the kind
Johannes did a good one on it too. He had them, disembarking from a Qantas jet, all singing "I Still Call Australia Home."
This Leander Kelly here, she's got a great point. Like, people are talking about Israel and Palestine, but Egypt won't let the Palestinians in. They've got huge borders.
Exactly. Have you seen that? Have you seen that border? That border is one of the most fortified places on Earth. Yeah. Apparently it goes 20 meters underground.
Yeah.
You can't even tunnel underneath it.
No, the cockroaches have trouble getting across. No, this is, it really is. I think what's happening I actually think the biggest things happening in Australia now, because you watch social media, is this Tickle case, where the federal court has come out and said, yep, this man can be a woman. And I think Australians have gone, fuck off. Just fuck off. Yeah, we've gone too far. I actually think we do a quiz show every Monday with about 10, 20 questions. We're just going to do one on Monday. It's going to be one question. What is a woman? That's it. I thought we'd answered that in the caves. I thought that was sort of way behind us. I thought Neanderthals sort of knocked that one in the back. But here we are. And it's just insane.
Can I just read?
But not really insane. It's only insane from our point looking forward as critical thinking, fair-minded Australians. If you're looking from another point of view that you want to destroy our culture and you've got nefarious ideas for our future that don't include us, then it's not insane at all.
The federal court was simply confirming what Julia Gillard's legislation. I mean, it wasn't a deliberate decision by the federal court to overrule biology. They were simply saying that Julia Gillard's legislation stands, and that is that if you think you're a woman, then you are a woman. Julia Gillard is responsible for that, not the federal court, which is.
Oh yeah, we get it, but it's still here. That's
But Michael, I mean, when do people? I mean, Australians are saying you've gone fucking too far this time. But
yeah,
I mean, the hypocrisy. Julia Gillard was supposedly the first female Prime Minister of Australia, and she doesn't even know what a woman is. And she, the famous misogyny speech, and she stood up for women. It's just the hypocrisy is so blindingly obvious now that I do think. I think just to broaden. I know, John, you wanted to bring something up, but I just want to make a point. I think we are at a bit of a tipping point right now. I think wokeism is starting to carpet. One Nation is now, according to Roy Morgan, One Nation is now the most popular political party in Australia. We've just seen Reform and Restore Britain, the two political parties, absolutely clean up in council elections in Britain. And we've seen probably more than 1 million, maybe 2 million people marching for restoration of patriotism on the streets of London overnight. I think, gentlemen, I think we are witnessing the beginning of the end of wokeness, which wouldn't be a bad thing.
Most certainly not. And Bill Leake was kind of an enemy of wokeism, if you want to call it that, long before it was becoming fashionable to be against it. So I just want to read a couple of paragraphs. He gave this speech for a book called Trigger Warning that he put out, and he gave it literally 2 days before he died. He looked perfectly well, happy, on top of things. It was kind of spooky.
What did he have?
He died of a stroke, of a heart attack.
Okay.
It was found that one of the arteries, I think, into his heart was 90% blocked, and there were all sorts of complications on the way to the hospital. There is some speculation that he might have been saved, but anyway, he died on the operating table. They started operating on him. Oh my God!
So they're probably doing what they did with me, because I had a bypass and I was 90% blocked.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, that's what they said. 90% blocked everywhere. Yeah, just straight to a bypass. So yeah, it was touch and go. So
wow.
I'm a bastard. Yeah.
Okay.
How are you coping? How are you coping now, Michael?
Oh yeah, now my plumbing's been replaced, and my gutters have all been cleaned out, and I'm great. I'm bonked like a 19-year-old. I'm fucking having a great time of my life. I'm not taking any of their sexual suppressant drugs they gave me, so I'm just going to die running. I'm really good. I highly recommend it at 60. Go in, get your plumbing redone. You're out of you're off and running.
Yeah, you sound like Bill.
That's how it felt. That's how they caught me. So I came out of hospital. I had a staph infection and everything. Got past all of that. Got back to this place that there's this man allowed us to stay to convalesce because all we had was the bus. And Kelly and I are just partying on, and the hospital called up, and I still remember she's going, "Oh, hello, this is our 6-week follow-up." I go, "Oh, hi, how you going?" She goes, "Yeah, how are you going?" I said, "Oh, yeah, really good, really good. Yeah, it's great." She goes, "And how's the sex?" I said, "Oh my God, it's never been better. I'm like a 19-year-old. We're just going like, oh, it's fantastic." She goes, "Oh, that's strange." I said, "Why is that strange?" She goes, "All those drugs you're on are sexual suppressant drugs." I went, "Oh."
Can I tell you?
I took the acid,
Can I tell you a sort of raunchy anecdote? Back in the days when Viagra was a new thing, Bill was standing around with a bunch of mates drinking at a pub, and the subject of Viagra came up, right? And Bill said, Viagra, what's Viagra? And one of his elderly mates said, oh, it's this magic pill that, if you're having trouble, it helps you get it up. And Bill said, get it up? I need a pill to help me get it down.
I got a joke saying the only drug that ever got fast-tracked faster than the Pfizer vaccine was Viagra. They gave it to a mouse. The mouse got an erection and went, that's good enough for us. Put it out there.
Oh, funny. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But anyway, let's read the extract. Yeah.
All right. This is his speech just literally 2 days before he died.
Wow.
And he says, ladies and gentlemen, I know it's International Women's Day, so first I must apologise for not being a woman. It's particularly regrettable that I'm not a glamorous Sudanese, Egyptian, Australian woman who wears a hijab promoting a book about what it's like being a glamorous Sudanese, Egyptian, Australian woman who wears a hijab. If I was, this wouldn't be the only event I've got lined up on my non-government funded whirlwind trigger warning awareness raising tour. When I met the great cartoonist Bill Mitchell about 34 years ago, and if anyone's old enough to remember Bill Mitchell, he was one of Australia's great cartoonists, he said, quote, mate, a cartoonist only has to be funny once a day, but it's a lot harder than you'd think. He was right,
Wow.
but he had no idea how much harder it would be for me than it ever was for him. So this is Bill Leake talking, for anyone who's lost track. For a start, for Mitchell to come up with a cartoon, all he had to do was take a serious political issue, exaggerate it to the point of ridiculousness, then draw what he saw when he got there. But I can't do that because the ideas our politicians come up with these days are utterly ridiculous to begin with. And if you're starting at the point of absurdity, where do you go from there? I mean,
Wow.
what am I going to do? Have to come up with to make teachers in the safe school programs look ridiculous when they actually start giving jobs to gimps? I had to look up the word gimp this morning, but it's, those guys that are... Since everyone knows...
Another quaint concept.
They're those guys in the dungeons, all dressed in leather, being pissed on and whipped and all the rest of it. And it's only a matter of time. So that was it, really.
Well, I mean, and it's a good point, John. It's something that I've written about a couple of times recently as well, is that, the challenge for a cartoonist now is to satirize what is already seemingly satirical. It's not easy. Johannes does it well, I've got to say. He's very good at it. Bill's response was usually to be outrageous and offensive. But, later in life, when the absurdity of politics became overwhelming, I think his cartoons became just slightly more thoughtful. It's hard to be outrageously offensive when the person you are depicting is kind of offensive in his own way anyway. So I mean the righto, what's his name then? There's nothing funny about that cartoon. It was just a grim depiction of reality, really. So I think the answer to Bill's question was, and Bill didn't know the answer to that question. I was there that night, and the way he asked it was genuine bewilderment. I can still recall the way he said it. Where are you supposed to go from there? Like he really meant it. And anyway, I just think he became slightly more contemplative in his cartoons because absurdity was all around anyway. So yeah.
Well, because I'd known him for so long, and because, I was by that stage one of the older reporters on the paper, all the bright young things with their bottles of mineral water. I just came from a different era. And so, I was the one you remember when he fell off the balcony at John Singleton's house and brain damage. And basically no one thought he would ever be able to draw again. So I was the one that was always... got to ring him up in the hospital bed, and then eventually when he drew his about 10 weeks later or more, I think, he then wrote his first, drew his first cartoon back for the paper, and I was sent up to do that story. And yeah, it was like, there was this big concern: is there anything left of the Bill that we knew? And sure enough, pumping headache that day too. You could see he was really,
mate. What he fought against was phenomenal. Like coming out of that operation, he had seizures, and he had blinding headaches, and on top of that, like he hit the bottle again. Like he was dealing with all that trauma by getting drunk again. Like he was hiding bottles of vodka. I never knew him to drink vodka until then, and so yeah, he was in a bad way, but nothing could stop him drawing cartoons. Absolutely nothing. He was in so much pain and suffering so much mental anguish. But yet he was producing amazing cartoons. Like, and you may recall, John, that I think Chris Mitchell was editor-in-chief at the time. They just let him back easily. Like he started with 1 or 2 cartoons a week, and then it went to 3, and then it was probably, I don't know, maybe a year later that he got the full-time gig back again. And by then he was in the best form of his life, and producing the best, clearest and most sort of intellectually sophisticated cartoons of his whole career. And we're lucky he didn't die that day, because what he produced after that accident was just the best, some of the best cartooning that's ever been produced anywhere in the world, and was a gift to Australia, and testament to warnings about where the country was heading, and where we are now, if you ask me.
It's a pity in a way that they were published in the Australian and were relatively inaccessible to the broader public. The great unread newspaper of Australia is the Australian.
Yeah.
And I think it's even, now I don't know who reads it, but you don't see many copies.
Can I tell? I'll just make a point here. The cartoons that got him in particular trouble were, there was the Indian solar panels cartoon. This is all in the book, and the cartoons are reproduced. He got in trouble for when was it? I think it was the Paris conference, climate conference. There was a strong movement there for aid to developing countries, to 20% of it to be in the form of climate-friendly aid. So essentially sending solar panels to people who need diesel generators. That's really what it was. Bjorn Lomborg wrote at length about what a stupid idea that was. And Bill agreed, and he drew a cartoon of a bunch of poor Indians sitting around trying to eat solar panels. And one of them goes, they're chewing on bits of glass. And one of them goes, it's no good. And this other bloke sitting there with a little jar of chutney, he goes, hang on, I'll just try some chutney on a shard of glass. It was hilarious, right? He got in trouble with that. Around the world, it was perceived as racist, right? And he got in trouble around, the press council got on top of it. It turned it into a nightmare. And the reason that, and the what's his name then cartoon became controversial was that people just did screen grabs of the cartoons and shared them on social media. Now, just as Bjorn Lomborg had said exactly the same thing as Bill, Bjorn Lomborg got away with it because he was explaining his case in a 1,000-word piece that people can't be bothered reading or sharing. Same thing happened with what's his name then. There were people in the Australian who were more or less arguing in favor of a new stolen generation. I'm not exaggerating. They were saying we need to rescue these kids from this situation, which is essentially we need to take them as if they were the new stolen generation. Nobody blinked an eyelid because they were in written pieces that don't get cut and pasted and shared. Whereas a cartoon, it's like click, bang, it's gone viral. And one of the problems Bill faced was that he was producing cartoons within the context of the Australian. Like all the debates that were happening on the opinion page of the Australian back when it was an extremely robust and intellectually.
And Nicholas Rothwell, for instance, wrote brilliantly about that whole thing for years.
He did. He did. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he never
was a
copped any.
wonderful
He
writer,
never copped any grief. It was only Bill because it was a cartoon. You can share it on social media without being a subscriber to the newspaper.
Keep talking. I'm just doing something in the image.
Oh God. So
yeah,
you've been one of
so
the
there was
only...
one thing here's something, John. Because I met Bill in 1994, right, when he joined the Australian, and all I knew about Bill when I first met him, he was sober. Then he hit the bottle, and all I knew about Bill
was even funny about sobriety. Sorry, Fred. He said, "John, anyway, I was sober for 7 years. They were the worst 7 years of my life." You know, he was just funny about everything, including being sober. Oh, it was terrible.
Oh, mate, he turned up at my place. He used to come down to my apartment when we lived in the same block, and he was really on the tear in those days. He used to come down before he'd go out at night. He'd come down to my place, have a couple of beers, and then go on his way. And you know, he wouldn't come home till 4 a.m. And he was really, really on the tear at the time. But anyway, he turned up at my place once. I had little kids, you know, like I wasn't about to go out and join him on these massive benders, but it was always good to have a couple of beers with him in the early evening. And he turned up one night about 6 o'clock and he looked grey and very sick. He'd picked up some sort of, you know, flu and combined with a hangover from the night before. He was really unwell. And, you know, he comes in the door and goes, "Oh, Fred, I'm not feeling very well." I go, "What's the matter, man?" "Oh, hungover and I've got the flu. Oh, mate, I would feel like shit." And I said to him, "Oh, so you won't be having a beer then?" And he goes, "Mate, I said I was sick. I didn't say I was dead."
I was just in grok. Imagine. I don't think it's working. I was just trying to, because I've been doing this thing lately. I put the book image in there. You go to Grok Imagine, you put the book image in there, and you say, basically make the man in the book say, "Buy the bloody book." But it's not working this morning. But it's freaky. So I was going to have him actually say, "That'd be your ad, buy the bloody book." There's it's because this is another thing. See, it's Bill would have been dealing with AI. You know, AI's pumping this stuff out just like he's doing in seconds. That's another interesting thing that Bill would be in as an artist, you know.
Yes. Well, you'd know, Michael, and John, you'd know this too. I'm not afraid of AI in the slightest as a writer. Like the job of us creative human people is to stay one step ahead of AI. AI can only emulate what we do. And if we continue to be more creative than AI, then job done. If you can't be more creative than AI, then you need to get another job. But so Bill would have stayed well ahead of AI, I think.
Well, that's... I'll have one more crack. He sounds fascinating. He really does. It sounds like a fascinating world to live in, to be honest. I mean, it's just hanging out with John. You could sort of pick up a sense from what it was like. I had John and Jerry, another old reporter, on the other day. But look, I just want to bring up something else while you're here, Fred. We're trying to... There has to be ways to fund the independents. Now, the independents literally have to be funded by the people, because if the corporations get hold of you and go, "Oh, this is great, you know, we like what you're doing, Fred, you know, we want to pay you," but they're going to say, "Oh, Fred, maybe you take that one down." Maybe that's, you know, how do we remain independent? Because right now the country needs us to be thoroughly independent. And so we're doing things like this. This is, have you heard of this? This is, we're pushing. So this is a symbol now. You can create your own. And it's based on a blue-banded Australian bee. I made this one with Grok. And it's to go on the back of your car or a band. And you see blue bees on there. you can't see the light. Now, what it is the blue-banded native bee. I never heard of it until I got approached by this idea. Doesn't live in a hive, doesn't follow a queen, but pollinates flowers. So wants to be a productive part of society, wants to think for itself. That's us. We want to be a productive part of the Australian society, but we want to think for ourselves. Thank you very much. So that's what woke is about, thinking like them. And it's hard, and they're calling us sovereign citizens. So our thing is to say, well, let's define ourselves. We'll embrace sovereign citizens, yeah, no worries. But let's define ourselves. And people are calling themselves blue bee folk. And it's very gentle, but but what you can do is you can create the merch and sell it. This is the Fred Pawle. Is that you say your name, Paul, the second name?
Yeah, Paul. Yeah.
This is the Fred Pawle Blue Bee. And so people can collect them, as long as it's got a similar theme. So what we're saying is as this growing group, it started with anti-vaxxers, but now it's everyone who's pissed off for farmers. We connect ourselves by diversity of thought, celebrating diversity of thought, but unity of purpose. And what we want is an Australia that's more conducive to our souls, because they're taking us with all their money. They're taking us somewhere where we don't want to live. I don't want to live in this world where I can't speak. These lines got to stand for something. They have to stand for something. They're not just there so we can all meet up and celebrate freedom on one day while being too scared to say anything at the same time. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
That I think one of the problems with Australia, and I am one of the most patriotic Australians around, and
yeah, me too.
We don't have the advantage of a really deep history. Like, we're only 238 years old, whatever it is. Our country was founded, or our colony was established, only 12 years after the Declaration of Independence in America. And the Americans got off on a good start because they had this philosophical foundation for their country. We never had that. I mean, the closest we got arguably were things like Eureka or Gallipoli. But we've never had anything that that we can bind ourselves under. I mean, I like this blue bee idea, but it's indicative of the fact that we really need something that binds us as Australians, and we're still struggling to know what that is. And in the meantime, pernicious forces under the Labor government and various other bureaucracies and globalist organizations are taking advantage of that and dividing us and making us questioning our patriotism and our and what the mutual obligation is between us and our country. And because all that is flimsy, there is cause for a lot of pessimism in Australia, if I can put it that way. But yeah, I mean, I admire the idea of the blue bee. What a wonderful symbol, and it's natural to Australia. But Australians really need to start thinking about what it is that binds them together, and getting behind it. Yeah,
it's like I tell people. So Paul Hogan brought us all, Bob Hawke brought us all together, where he said the America's Cup Day, if you sack your employee today, you're a bum. And we basically said, this is who we are. We work hard, but when we party, we party. So we thought, yeah, man, we like that. We like that reflection of ourselves. And then Paul Hogan came throwing other shrimp on the barbie. That's how they sold us to the world. That's who we thought we were. We thought we were Paul Hogan Americans, patriots, good hearts, but brave enough to stick to the government. And COVID came along and showed us, no, we were debt slaves, and we were just basically everything who we thought we were was gone. We lost our identity. I think that's why people are struggling. A lot of people say to me now that PTSD from the last few years is the new normal. That's why everyone's like a little numb. And I tell people, if you want a vision of Australia now, imagine yourself driving down a lonely highway. There's potholes everywhere. And on the side of the road, there's a rusting billboard. And there's Paul Hogan sort of, paper flipping about. And he's got the shrimp up, and so throw another shrimp on the barbie. and somebody's graffitied underneath and your neighbor under a bus. And this is where we are. But we have memory. We know who we are. We can remember. So I wish we could see COVID as like a Pearl Harbor attack, but we're picking ourselves up now. It's exposed our faults, and we're coming back. And people like Albanese and all these crazy ideas, well, at some point they can just fuck off. You know, 'cause we don't want digital ID, because France has just had 19 million people's data all stolen by AI, gone. Mexico's just had all theirs. You can't protect us with digital ID. We're not that stupid. So stop it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think people are going to realize the only thing you do is you don't comply. And that's what Husey was so powerful in his rant. At the end, he goes, why are we paying taxes? Why? That's planting a seed deep in the Australian conscious. What do we get for our taxes? Because all we see is that woman partying on our money in her,
Annika Wells.
Annika Wells. And it's almost like we're in Animal Farm. And the other day, I went down to Albany to interview a truck driver who's the son of a famous Anzac. He's worked hard all his life as a truckie, born on a farm, never did any much schooling. But he's worked hard all his life, worked hard right through COVID, even though he was in his late 60s or early 70s. Basically kept kept country going, you know. And he said there was nowhere. You go into a town, there was nothing open. You couldn't eat anywhere. No one would let you in, and yet he still delivered. And then he finally he bought a chalet in a caravan park in Albany, which is where you could see where the Gallipoli boys left from. And the Indonesian lawyer who just bought the park or something sold it to RAC. RAC said, we want everyone gone, we just want freehold. So they kicked them all out, and nothing. He went to every politician. He went through all the proper channels. Everyone said, tough luck, tough luck, tough luck. Even RSA said tough luck. ABC did a story on him. Nothing happened. So we went down as independent reporters, did a documentary on him, and just let him talk. And now the CWA found him a house. And so the people are taking care of the damage that the government and the corporations are doing. The people are starting to rise up. That's where I'm seeing the hope.
Yeah, so I like that. I like the analogy between...
I come to farms. The farms now, regularly farms, have 2 or 3 people living on them hidden away. The people are starting to rise up and take care of their own. And I only see that because I'm on the road, going town to town. I'm hearing these stories that don't make the news. So there's hope rising from the bottom. The Aussie spirit is rising up like in the Banjo Patterson days. It is rising up. And there's so much to write about, so much to document, so much to capture that, you know, the more podcasters that come out, the better. Because this is how we write our identity. You know,
how are those people going to rise up, though? How do you envisage it happening, Michael? What sort of movement are they going to?
I don't know how that's going to happen. I think Pauline. I wouldn't be surprised if Pauline Hanson wins next time. I think Australia has had enough, and she might get the shock of her life. She wants to be opposition, but she might end up in the main seat.
Yeah.
With Labor with like 1 seat, you know, from somewhere in the centre of Sydney or the back of Brisbane, you know, they got 1 seat. There he is, Albanese. And suddenly, because people have had enough. And what it is, how Australians see it on the road, and especially women, they've been in an abusive relationship. Dan Andrews, there were so many women in the movement in Melbourne because they saw Dan Andrews as an abusive relationship. But now it's a country. You can't speak. You can't do this. You get fined constantly. You're constantly made to feel like you're a piece of shit. You know, shame, 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 shame. People have had enough. At one point, they're going to go F off. And I think the government knows this. That's why they're removing the guns. That's why they're trying to bring in hate speech laws. They realize they've got a bomb ready to blow up. And that started with The Voice. And now they're trying to keep it down as much as they can. Oh, where'd you go?
Yeah.
Oh, there he is. Yeah, so that's my view. That's my view on the road from the people. There's at some point, but what that will be, I don't know.
See, this is where independent media has one up on the media corporations, Michael, because you're actually talking to people. You're getting out on the road and knowing and seeing what's happening out on the, among ordinary people. Like John will testify to this. Most journalists spend all their career inside a newsroom. Like it used to be in the old days when I first started in journalism, you would get out of the office and you would go out and interview people and you'd find out what's happening out in society. But nowadays, you just spend your whole time not only locked in an office, but if you work in one of the sort of tabloid level organizations, all you do is scan social media and respond to that by knocking up stories. So you've got the advantage, Michael. You are, and you represent the best of the independent media by going out and actually talking to people, and you occasionally, knock things up that have enormous, viral effect. I mean, you interviewed that guy outside Albo's house, didn't you, at Copacabana? That went.
No,
that went
was
crazy.
That was someone else. No, I did a homeless guy that was there. I did a woman who had been a researcher of the turbines. That was probably the one that got our Facebook page taken down. There was like
that car park, lights in the car park underneath Albo's mansion.
You can see. I've got a mate there, David Livingston. He lives in the car park and he can see Albo's house. And
the car park so that's a great one.
The other thing that I think will kick in is survival instinct. Like we came down from far in North Queensland, right the way down. Now we're stuck in Perth. We're just stuck in WA, looking at the fuel prices. And every town we were going to, the only thing anyone was talking about was the amount of Indians that are buying up every business. And they're getting, what we found out, apparently they get incredibly cheap loans from India and they're just buying everything. And they're walking into your cafe, or they bought a fencing contract business in Port Lincoln somewhere, and they offer them twice what the business is worth. So I believe there's a way of buying the businesses as a way to sort of funneling people in. We don't know. We're trying to find out. But those went nuts. And what it is there's a lot of homeless in all these towns, and the homeless are white people. And I look at it and the locals are clever enough to know this isn't naturally going to rectify itself. One's becoming an underclass, one's becoming a ruling class, and a survival instinct will kick in. This is what I think. You hear it edging. You hear this thing, brimming over. And Indians are good people. Nothing against them. They're industrious. They're doing these things. I've got nothing against them, but you can see it clearly defined. You know what I mean? And the other thing I interviewed yesterday, which was really interesting, because we went in this little store in Bridgetown, and people came in. I interviewed loads of people, but one to go up is a government worker, and she really wants to speak, but I have to hide her voice. Even though the government's been brutal to her, I'm going to change her into a man using CapCut. And this is the way they can only speak now. They can only talk if they're hidden, like they're talking about the mafia, or they're talking about like a pedophile ring, but they're a government employee. I met a student, one of the most extraordinary, he didn't want to talk, but the most extraordinary things. We were in Melbourne in a park somewhere, and a Sudanese guy came up to talk, and he said he was living in Sudan. He moved himself into a refugee camp because it was the only place to get an education. Educated himself, finally got to Australia, was working for the government, and the government sent a memo around. This is in Victoria. If you mention Palestine and Israel in a conversation, if you post about it, if we catch you anything to do with it, you'll be sacked summarily. And he was just going, where's the freedom? He was actually saying he had freedom in the refugee camp.
Yeah, exactly. Where's more freedom in a refugee? I mean, Australians are deluded that they live in a free country. I mean, what you said about that guy having his land forcibly acquired by the government, I mean, even if you have to pay land tax on land that you own, you don't own it. If you have to pay tax on it, you don't own it. It's not yours. You don't control its ownership. And it's the same with our free speech. We are kidding ourselves if we think we live in a country with free speech, because We don't. We just, we can be jailed or fined, or in the case of Bill Leak, hounded to your death for saying things that don't fit the narrative. So, yeah. I mean, I love that analogy you made a minute ago about between Pearl Harbor and COVID. It really was, maybe it's taken a while for us for the reality of it to sink in, but I do think that it's going to make people aware that that it is the equivalent of a foreign takeover or a foreign attack on our culture and our values. It's just the only, if it's taken a while to sink in, it's because our values are a little bit vague. That's all.
I think,
but how do we know that's not happening?
Really just leading to the disengagement and dispiriting nature of Australia today. People really feel dispirited. I've never seen the country this dispirited.
Yeah, that's everywhere you go, and
this government.
Oh, here it comes. Okay, we've got a few seconds. We'll go out with Bill saying buy the book if it works. To show you how it works, I'm really interested. Everyone goes to the big things. I'm really interested in the tiny little things. Like we're in the Eden, and Australia is beautiful. It is beautiful. I recommend you, if you haven't seen it, get out and see it, because it's astounding. It's very different from, say, Africa with all these huge animals. I mean, basically most of the animals in Australia look like they used a rat template, and they've got like a big rat, a little rat, and a jumping rat, and it's like, and there's no real huge. It's like God got bored and thought, oh fuck it, just deserts, but then you realize it's the vastness, it's the beauty, it's the tenacity of the animals to survive, which is in a tough environment. And then you get to places like Eden, and we're in this empty car park, and it's the view was incredible. And a big tradie comes down, business owner in town, big guy, big Aussie guy. Sort of, you'd expect him to watch the footy show and go out and play pool and probably look at a Bill Leak's thing and laugh and go, yeah, right on, mate. And he's sitting there looking at my bus, and he goes, he's got a few vaccine injuries and told me why he had to take the vaccine. And then he goes, but the hardest thing, and this is paraphrasing now because it's been a while, hardest thing is he felt that he was medically raped by the government.
Yeah.
And then he cries.
Yeah.
And he's a big guy standing next to my bus in the gloaming, crying. And not like sobbing. He's just like here. And that's how he feels. If you're watching Albo, that's how people feel. I know there's this, but that's how they feel. That the government is no longer working for them. I even interviewed someone in Perth who's a McGowan fan. She's had all the shots. Even she said, oh, yeah, but the government's working for someone above them. I don't know who it is, but they're beholden to people above them. This is where we're at.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, let's see if this works. Hold on.
Is it working?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. I think I got to do one more time. 2 seconds. I left out the... Oh my God, this is going to freak you out. It's probably not his voice, but it's going to freak you out. Let's see if it works out. But this is where we are. That's the other thing too with AI. I just think since we've got you here, I think independent media has to absolutely embrace AI, because you've watched documentaries, The Transformer, which is the thing where you type in and then it kicks out the answer. Even the ones making it don't know how that works. How's that possible? How can you engineer something and not know how it works? So who knows? Maybe they got it from a UFO. Maybe who knows what they've done with it, which means it's up for grabs. They don't know how it works. We don't know how it works. It's a double-edged sword. So and it helps you as an indie journalist pump out high-quality stuff. You can get it up. You can edit it properly. I know John uses it all the time. And I use it all the time. And okay, here it comes. We'll go out with this. I'll just get it here. Can you hear that?
No.
Watch.
This is turning into an anticlimax, mate.
Wait, I'm trying my best here. Wait, I'm trying my best. Okay, I get you. On my computer, he's going like crazy. Which one is it? I'll try this one. Okay, let's see if it works. Next one.
bloody book. Buy the bloody book.
That's strange. How strange is
Can you
that?
do it again?
Bloody book.
So I've got him.
Buy the bloody book.
Jeez, that's clever.
Oh man.
Isn't that freaky?
Geez, I
I
tell
mean,
you,
probably
John,
not how
I
it
miss
sounds,
him
but if
so
you got his
much.
voice, it'll probably do his voice next. And so,
Yeah.
Can I ask you, just in going though, what made you want to encapsulate this man in a book? Did you feel like society was going to forget him, or?
Well, as I say on the back cover of the book, my 23-year friendship with Bill was one of the joys of my life. You know, he's the best friend I've ever had, to be honest. You know, apologies to the friends of mine who I still have and who are still alive. But he was just, knowing Bill was just an absolute gift. And the injustice of what happened to him in the end, as a journalist and as a writer, was just, it drove me to go through whatever it took to correct that record. And that's what this book is. It's a correction of the record. I still get abuse from people, you know, saying, oh, you know, why would you bother writing a book about a racist prick like that? You look at, you only have to read the book to know Bill had enormous demons. Like he was a funny bastard. Most people know him for two things. He was funny, and if you deliberately misinterpreted what he did, he was also racist. But the book revealed that a lot of the book is about his development as an artist. He was a really sensitive guy and intelligent, egalitarian, and had this enormous intellectual curiosity. But he also had, and I was going to mention this before, and I'll just quickly mention it. In 1978, he wrote a letter to his sister from Germany. His sister entrusted all these old letters to me, and I read them. There's probably 1,000 of them. I read them all probably 3 or 4 times. And they gave me a really vivid picture of what Bill was like before I met him in 1994. And in one of his letters in 1978, he said, and I'm paraphrasing from memory, the good thing about Australia is the readiness of people to call bullshit when they see it. And everything will be okay in Australia as long as people continue to do that. Now, Bill wrote that in 1978, completely unaware that in his lifetime it would become unacceptable to call bullshit in Australia. He just thought that was Australia's greatest quality, was that we just didn't hold back. If you were bullshitting, you'd know about it. And now it's become illegal. It's become illegal to call bullshit in Australia.
Now
and
the
so
truth gets
Bill
called
would
bullshit.
So that's what drove me. I mean, I read that quote early on when I was researching the book, and it was like, well, you know, here's where we're at. And yeah, I'm enormously proud of it. But he was a great man, a really great man.
Can I say, while I was talking about great man, Bruce Barris was writing a forward for the book.
Oh no, Barry Humphries. Barry Humphries wrote.
Sorry.
He wrote an introduction before he died. And it's really amusing. But I've got a new foreword by Rupert Degas, and I highly recommend people search for Rupert on Instagram. He is as funny as Bill was. He's one of the world's great impersonators, and he's a really highly sought after voice actor. Actually, he was a comedian on News Review in England for like, I don't know, 17 years or something, one of the longest running comedy shows in the world. And he moved to Australia in 2014, I think it was. And he's a very patriotic new Australian, but he's hilariously funny, brilliant bloke, great writer and great impersonator. So search him out on Instagram, because he does the best impersonations of Anthony Albanese.
I know the guy.
Yeah, you know who I'm talking about. He's becoming quite viral. But anyway, he's a very funny guy. I got to know him, and I just thought, mate, you've got to write a foreword to this book, because he brings an outsider's perspective to the life of Bill, and it is a very nice one. He does it very very delicately and beautifully. It's a great foreword. I'm really pleased it's there.
Well, just in leaving though with Barry Humphries, I mean, when I was leaving Melbourne, the Comedy Festival had taken him off the Melbourne Comedy Festival, even though he'd set it up because it was too offensive.
Yeah, because he wouldn't agree that men can be women. I mean, yeah,
and they can't. They can't. I'm sorry, you can't. It's
Yeah.
and I'm going to say it now because we have to say it. I was watching my partner the other day. We were somewhere anyway, and I was just looking down at her belly, and it just hit me. 2 human beings who are now living their own lives came out of this belly before me. You know, this is from other men. That's mind blowing, and we've all done that. We came out of women. Women are sacred for that. You might get pissed off, you might this, but we came out of women. And the only thing that comes out of us is, you know, a few stuff, but nothing of something that's going to grow into a human being and take over. It's an insult. The question itself is the insult. What is a woman? We don't have to ask that. If you have to ask that, you're obviously not from Earth. So it's you know, it's that's an insult. It is. And I think we have to keep calling it out because now the best response I saw was some Aussie guy going, "Well, look, you put me here now. So this guy now can go into the toilet with my daughter." And he goes, you know, and he's got the law on his side. He goes, "Well, I'll tell you, there's another ancient law, and that's a manly law. And our things is protect women. And mate, if I see you going into the toilet after my girl, I'm going to beat the shit out of you." And
well said.
Well said.
Well said.
Well said. Yeah. You've done this. We try to be nice. And this is what I'm saying. There's something happening in Australia. People are going to go, "No, mate, you're not doing it." You know, so I've got great hope that we just have to go through tyranny to get rid of the apathy or oppression to get rid of the apathy in order to try leave the next generation a greater Australia, which might be our actual true identity. But we have to fight for it. You're here now. If you're here now, you got to fight for it. Otherwise, the only freedom you have is the freedom to endure. That's it.
Yeah, mate. Couldn't have put it better myself. Yeah, you got to fight for it. I'm glad I'm on the side with you guys.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, it's a great interview. I can see. Yeah.
Thanks very much for coming on the show.
John, before we take off?
Sorry, mate.
Good. Yeah. No, we've been talking with Fred Pawle. He's one of the great characters of Australian journalism, and he's the author of the reissued book Die Laughing, and he was great mates with Bill Leake, one of the greatest talents Australia's ever produced. And it's been a pleasure to have you on. Thank you very much, Fred.
Oh, it's been a pleasure.
If you want to see what he really thinks, have a look at his Substack page. There he goes. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. All right. Take care, guys. Be in touch. See ya.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks.
Thanks.
Now, this is so I wrote this song, I wrote this poem, Remains, and it originally went AI, but now this is the second song where humans have taken the AI version and humanized it. So this is a guy called Simon O'Rourke, who's a painter and tradie in Perth, and this is his version of our song called Remains. So this is what's happening out here. Culture's rising. See ya.
Thanks, guys.
How did we reach here? Where the view looks like the view I used to see. But somehow everything's changed. Everything's gone, yet remains. I went to the shops and the prices going up faster than I paid. Yet we're doing the checkouts like we've been demoted to slave. Somehow everything's changed. Everything's gone, yet remains. How did we get here? How did we go so were here with me. We didn't know the answer, 'cause we was young and free. And our eyes were brighter, and our laughter longer. And I just wanna go there, I just wanna go there. Somehow everything's changed, everything's gone.